This is a ducted Cinewhoop, and the way it comes set up from the factory, it kind of sucks. It doesn't fly well at all. It has terrible prop wash, it gets blown around in the wind, and it makes this horrible, unnatural noise that pretty much brings the neighbors running, wondering what the heck is going on, because they've never heard anything like that before. But the good news is, you can get some very cool cinematic close proximity shots with your GoPro that you couldn't get with a different type of quad, maybe close to people, maybe indoors, etc. So I've got some great shots with this thing, but the problem is I just don't enjoy flying it, to the point where I've pretty much put it up on the shelf. It's been gathering dust. I haven't touched it for the last year or two. But recently I got to thinking, I wonder if there's some upgrades and changes that I could make to my ducted Cinewhoop to turn it into something that I actually enjoy flying. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what I've done to mine to make it fly better. Now, this is an Eachine Cvatar, but whatever brand Cinewhoop that you have, pretty much everything in this video will apply because the designs are so similar. First of all, let's talk about these ducts. The ducts allow the quad to have much greater efficiency because the props work so close within those ducts that it forces all the air downwards and generates extra thrust. The problem is that creates such a horrible noise that for me it makes the quad unflyable in many situations because I just can't deal with that noise. And so the first thing that I did was I removed the ducts and the foam prop guards. Now, I realized that I'm reducing efficiency, but the trade-off by lowering the noise significantly, it's just completely worth it. I mean, I will literally fly it in some situations that I wouldn't otherwise. Now, I actually kind of like the idea of being surrounded by soft, squishy foam when I want to fly indoors or around people. So to compensate for that, I printed up an extra set of these TPU duct guards, which give you a little bit more protection when landing or crashing, but without the excessive weight and without trapping the air inside. I did not make these duct guards. There's a file on Thingiverse. I'll link to it in the video description if you're interested in printing a set of these up for yourself. Since I knew I was going to be losing some of the thrust and efficiency provided by the ducts, I also switched props from these 3-bladed props that come stock on the Eachine Cvatar to these 5-bladed props. Now, later versions of the Eachine Cvatar and a lot of 3-inch ducted Cinewhoops actually come with these props, so there must be something to that. Now, the difference in noise between the 3-bladed prop and the 5-bladed prop was not as dramatic as I was expecting, but it's definitely there. The big difference that I noticed is it has a little bit more authority and control, and the pitch of the noise is a little bit different. I don't know if it's higher, but it's not as offensive to the ear. And I guess that makes sense because if you think about it, a more aggressive prop doesn't have to spin as fast to generate the same amount of thrust. Another opportunity to reduce noise is by reducing weight. As simple as it sounds, anywhere you can shed weight will really help the quad fly quieter, because then those props won't have to work so hard to lift a cine pig off the ground if you have a big battery, a full GoPro, a bunch of prop protectors, etc., etc. All that weight really adds up, and that's where that leaf blower sound comes from. The HD version of the Cvatar ships with a DJI air unit, and it actually comes with these cool TPU parts which will hold the antennas in there. I started with the analog version and I upgraded with a Caddx Vista. I actually have an air unit just sitting around that I picked up on a Black Friday sale from Newbie Drone last year, but I didn't want to put an air unit in here simply because I don't see the benefit. An air unit is heavier. For me, the DVR footage is not usable anyway, and the Vista allows me to save weight, it gives me the same range, and it gives me the same experience running at 1200 milliwatts. The digital conversion for the Cvatar was super easy because it comes with an F722 flight controller that has a built-in DJI plug. So it's just a matter of installing the Vista onto the frame, plugging the harness into the flight controller, and then setting up your UART in Betaflight to get your OSD. So the Cvatar actually isn't set up for the Caddx Vista. They ship it with the TPU parts to install the air unit. but I was able to use these 2 holes on the frame here and then run a zip tie through the mounting holes on the Vista, and that holds it in place and works great for me. Unfortunately, I didn't think to weigh my Cinewhoop before I did these upgrades to give you an exact before and after weight, but I can give you a pretty good idea of the weight savings. First of all, by removing the 3D printed ducts and foam guards, I removed about 55.5 grams. Now I should mention that these are the actual 3D printed ducts that come with the Cvatar, but they're unusable. They're completely fragile and they just break. And so I printed my own ducts, which are 1 gram heavier. I then added 4 of these TPU duct guards, which are around 2.5 grams each, for a net weight savings of about 45 grams. Now I know a lot of people will run ultralight cameras on their Cinewhoops, like an Insta360 Go 2 or a naked GoPro. I personally don't do that. When it comes to the Insta360 Go, I'm not very impressed by the image quality that I see out of that camera. It's not at a professional level. It's not really worthwhile to me. And when it comes to a naked GoPro, I simply haven't gone down that route just because I think they're finicky, they're fragile, they're expensive. Now the Hero 10 Bones that recently came out, now that's very interesting. I will be looking at that. And I think, if my memory is correct, I think that's something like 60 grams without the ND filter, but with some amazing image quality. But as you can see, my Hero 7 is weighing in at about 89 grams without a battery, without an ND filter. But that's a pretty good balance between image quality, weight, and of course, cost. This iFlight balance lead will allow me to run the GoPro directly off the LiPo, and it'll save round about 20 grams. It's not a huge weight savings, but every little bit helps. Another area where you can really reduce some weight is by running a lighter battery. For this 6S Cinewhoop, the manufacturer recommends a 1300 to 1500 6S battery. That's crazy heavy. I run an 1100 6S on mine usually, which is just over 200 grams. I find that this battery is more than enough to give me over 5 minutes of flight time with a GoPro, and it's still a pretty heavy setup. In fact, I have some 856Ss on order because I think they'll be a better fit for this ultralight Cinewhoop setup that I'm going for. In fact, I did a test. This is a 6S Cinewhoop with 2400 kV motors, but I have some of these 4S 1000 milliamp batteries, which weigh in at about 90 grams lighter than my 6S 1100s. I did a test around my house with the full GoPro that I normally run, and I got easily over 3.5 minutes of soft flying cruising around. Now, if you can imagine trying to get an indoor shot, the type of shots that you usually get with a Cinewhoop, you're going to generate a lot less noise and bother people a whole heck of a lot less using a smaller battery like this, and it's still pretty easy to control, and it actually flies a little bit better rather than having this huge gas tank of a battery that you might not actually need. Another way to shave off a little weight is by getting rid of any accessories that you don't absolutely need. This is a standard GoPro thumb screw that actually came with my Eachine Cvatar, but do you really need a full thumb screw? This is a simple M5 bolt that came with the Diatone L5, and you can buy these on Amazon. They're real cheap. The standard thumb screws are around 12.7 grams, and minimalist M5 bolt is about 5 grams. So you save 7.5, between 7 and 8 grams by going minimalist, and every little bit helps. You know, it's not a big deal, but every little bit helps. Another thing to mention is when I first got my 3D printer, I think I went overboard and printed TPU everything for all my quads. And then I realized a lot of that stuff isn't really necessary. Big, heavy landing feet and all that kind of stuff. So I went with landing feet on this quad that are super tiny. They weigh less than a gram, and I think they're only printed with like 40% infill, so they're real soft. And that serves for me without adding too much extra weight. So you might want to consider stripping off any sort of accessory or anything that you don't absolutely need. Every little bit helps. So if you have a Cinewhoop sitting on your shelf like I did that you don't enjoy flying because it's crazy loud and just doesn't fly very well, you might want to consider some of these upgrades. Get rid of the ducts, get rid of as much weight as you can, and you might end up with a very cine capable quad for indoor shots or shots around people that's actually kind of fun to fly and not too loud. Now, if you guys have any other ideas on how to make a 3-inch ducted Cinewhoop fly better, or other ideas for a cine-capable quad that's kind of fun to fly, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, that'll do it for this one. I'll see you guys in the next video.